Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Steady Horse Live. Super excited to be with everyone this evening. I'm going to give everyone a few moments to get on board. I am super excited, especially today, because at the end of the Steady Horse Live, we are going to be doing a giveaway for a Steady Horse hat. So I'm super excited about that. As usual, I'm going to give everyone time to kind of hop on in here. Make sure you say hello as you hop on in. Good evening, Sheila. Howdy from Michigan. Howdy, howdy. And Alicia, good evening, Alicia. Of course, we got Luke on here. Yeah, so I am super excited because we have a bunch of good questions that have already come in. And of course, remember, go ahead and post any additional questions you might have. Unfortunately, I can't always get to all of them, but I will try my best to make sure that we address as many as we possibly can. Good evening, Rhonda. And Lane from Canada, howdy. Leanne, hi, Leanne. Oh, this is great. So, it's really neat to be able to do these because I really appreciate the questions that people come up with and ask, and I think it's a really good opportunity for everyone to benefit from things that each other is dealing with. So always fun. Hi Donna, good to see you from South Mississippi. How's Bubbles doing, Donna? Okay. So I'm going to go ahead in a moment, and I'm going to take a look at some of the questions that Steady Horse Video Club members have submitted. And as usual, typically what I'll do is I'll respond to a lot of these questions via email directly to people. But I try to keep a handful that we can answer during our Steady Horse Live so that everyone can benefit from the questions. So let's see here. The first question that we're going to do, and in fact, one thing, I'm going to kind of change it up here. Instead of going right into those questions, I almost forgot here. There was a question on the group about biting, and I think it's really important that we go ahead and talk about that. And this tends to be one of these issues that is pretty controversial. It comes up every now and again. There's certain kind of hot button topics that come up. Biting is definitely one. Bridles is another. Spurs is another one. But how to deal with biting. And the school of thought on this kind of ranges from one end of the spectrum to the other. There's some folks who say, crack a 2x4 over that horse's head, which I do not condone by any means. And then there are other folks who say, pet that horse every time it bites you. And we got to meet somewhere in the middle. Where I am is a couple of things. Is if there is a solution other than having to apply more force towards my horse, I want to give my horse an opportunity to make a good decision, to choose to make a good decision. So a lot of times when a horse bites, it's not the actual act of biting that's a problem. There's a lot of things that has occurred before then that has led the horse to believe that they can bite you, okay? So we're talking about horses that are crowding your space, that are pushing on you, they're coming up to you and laying their head on you without asking you if they can come into your space. And so instead of backing them up, you're rubbing and loving on them. Now, it's so important because we want to create a draw with our horse. We want to teach our horses to incline towards us. We want to have a relationship with them, but there has to be clear defined parameters. And what happens with a lot of our horses is when we don't have those clear defined parameters, they get very confused. And sometimes what ends up happening is the tables kind of turn. They feel kind of entitled, they become spoiled, and they will act out, sometimes biting, kicking, swishing their tails, being nasty, okay? So what you want to do is make sure that you nip it in the bud before it gets to the biting. Now, say some of these signs were oblivious to you and you just didn't happen to catch them in time, and then all of a sudden your horse bites you, okay? Here's the main thing. is when a horse bites me, for me, the gloves come off. If a horse bites, if a horse kicks, the gloves come off. If a horse strikes at you, the gloves come off. And it doesn't mean that you're going to wail into that horse and abuse them, but what needs to happen, and here's the key, without emotion put into it, because a lot of times people get mad and then they clock their horse, and that's not what you want to do. So if you're upset, keep your hands to yourself. But what you want to do is you want to break that pattern that made that horse feel like they were entitled, they had the ability, the right to go in there and nip you. And so you need to break that thought immediately. I know a lot of people don't want to hear this, but under those circumstances, the best way to break that thought, if you can keep your cool and not be emotional about it, is just to give them a little bit of a tap, and it's got to come out of nowhere. And so if I have a horse that bites me, I'll kind of try and come from underneath and kind of pop them up in the jaw, in the muzzle area. And a lot of times, because I don't hit my horses, I'm not abusive to my horses, it catches them off guard. You'll see them, they'll kind of freak out for a little bit, and they'll step back and they'll look at you like, where did that come from? And because you come up from underneath that jaw, they don't really see it coming. They might not even know necessarily that it came from you, but what they do know is that when they asserted that aggressive behavior and tried to bite you, that there was a consequence that caught them off guard and made them feel uncomfortable. And so it's going to make them less likely to want to repeat that behavior in the future. So again, this is something that I don't recommend doing. If you're upset, if you're mad, don't do it, because it's not about striking and inflicting pain upon your horse. It's about introducing that pattern interrupt where you break that thought of pushiness, of domineering, of coming into your space without asking, so that you can break that thought. And then once you break that thought, if you give them a little pop under the jaw or under the muzzle, then just take a deep breath and go right back on to business as usual. Don't dwell in it. Don't make it a big deal. The horse comes back and tries to nip again, boom, give him a little pop and say, no, sir. You can't be a turd like that. You've got to be polite and respectful. But again, keep the emotion out of it. Once we get emotionally invested and we start looking to teach our horse a lesson, if you will, or that kind of thing, that, in my opinion, is when it turns into an abuse of the power structures that God has given us with these animals. It's our job to take care of them and provide for them, right? I remember my mom and my dad used to tell me when I get a whooping, they'd say, this is going to hurt me more than it hurts you. And it should. As a parent, I hate having to discipline my kids, right? And so the same is true with our horses. So if you're in a bad emotional state, make sure you lay off, take a deep breath, and figure out a way to reapproach. Okay, so there's that. And now that we've got that out of the way, what I want to do is go right on to some of the questions that were submitted via the Video Club members. And a couple shout outs. I see we got a couple more folks that have joined us. I see Mel. Good evening, Mel. We've got Sunny and Deanna Craddock. Good evening, everybody. So glad for those of y'all that are able to join us this evening. Super excited to spend some time with all of you. Hey, Fran. I see Fran Darlos. Good to see you, Fran. Okay, so and forgive me, some of these names are popping up here, and I'm not able to catch everybody that's coming in as I answer these questions. So if I missed you, I'm so sorry, but I'm so glad you're here. So glad you're here. Okay, so we have a question here from Sydney Burchill, and she says, where do I start when saddle breaking my 8-year-old mare that has been sitting out in pasture for 6 years? So this is more common than most people realize, where you have horses that are older that haven't been started under saddle. Life kind of gets in the way sometimes, and you might have plans for a coming yearling 2-year-old. You're like, okay, when this horse turns 3, we're going to get it under saddle and get it going. But stuff happens, right? And so sometimes the best laid plans, they just don't work out. So if you have a horse that's been sitting for a while, say you have a 6, 7, 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old for that matter, that hasn't been saddle broke yet, well, what you want to do is you want to go back and build a really good solid foundation with the groundwork, right? You don't want to just pull them out to pasture and throw a saddle on them and get with it. You know, they haven't been working and had expectations upon them for quite some time. And so we want to make sure that we are fair with our horses, that we give them realistic goals that they can achieve and set them up for success. The best way to do that is heavy, intensive groundwork. Get in there and start doing some of the groundwork. If you do some of the essential ground maneuvers that we do with our horses, what's going to happen is it's going to build their confidence. It's also going to help to build their stamina. It's also going to help to build their mental stamina as well, so that they are prepared to receive instructions from you and execute in a timely and methodical manner. And when that happens, each time they are able to do that, it builds your confidence. So it's not about doing a lot of big stuff with them. It's starting with small things and building upon that, making sure, of course, that you do a lot of desensitizing as well before you saddle up for the first time. That's where I would recommend that you start. Take your time, and just like with everything else, just look for gradual progress. Once you get some progress, move on to the next thing. You can revisit and review your next session. So good question. That's definitely where I recommend you start with the groundwork and make sure that you and your horse are confident there. Okay, so I've got let's see here. Got a couple new folks that have joined us here. I see Kay Reed jumped on here. Good evening, Kay. Welcome. Susie. Hi, Susie. Good to see you. And Jean Crow Ward from Lolita, Texas. Good evening, Jean. All right, so we have another question from Brittany Davidson, and it says, when deworming or giving my horse colic medication, my horse always throws his head up in the air. What is the easiest way to get my horse to let me put the syringe or tube in their mouth with ease? Oh, this is a good one, because what ends up happening, I see this all the time, most people teach their horse how to throw their head up. Now, I know it sounds crazy, but without realizing it, a lot of people do. They teach their horse how to just toss that head up and not lower that head and be nice and quiet when you're administrating that wormer or putting that toothpaste or whatever in their mouth, okay? And so here's what happens, right? You might grab a horse by the halter, and then you go to put the let's say, wormer, right, in their mouth. And as soon as you reach to put the wormer in their mouth, the horse throws their head up, right? And once the horse throws their head up, what do? We kind of bring the wormer down and we take a hold of that horse and try to wrangle them so that we can administer the medication or whatever the case might be. Think about what's happening there. Every time you go to put the wormer in that horse's mouth and they throw that head up and you stop to reposition, you're taking the pressure away. And so you're actually teaching your horse, okay, when I approach and you throw your head up, I'm going to take it away. And then I'm going to come and approach again. You throw your head up, I'm going to take it away. So this is where I encourage people to start. Take that wormer, or if you can't even use just your hand, start with your hand and reach up towards your horse's face. And when they throw their head up, just hold your hand there. You don't have to take a hold of the muzzle. You don't have to grab the halter. Just hold your hand there and let them raise that head up real high and avoid and all that kind of stuff. And then the moment that they're like, okay, well, the hand's not going away. Oh, and then you take the hand away. You let them know that when they relax into your hand, that's when you're going to release the pressure, by taking away the wormer, taking away the hand. What happens is sometimes we're so goal-oriented as streamlined thinkers, right? We want to get a job done. So we're grabbing that horse, we're going after it, and we don't realize that sometimes, a lot of times, when we're interacting with our horses, it's an opportunity to teach them, for them to learn. And we have to be fair and think of things from their perspective, right? So just make sure that when you go to worm them, add that wormer to their face, wait for them to soften, then give them a rub. And go ahead and just put it in the corner of your horse's mouth. Don't go plunging it in there. Put it in the corner of your horse's mouth, or set it up against the corner of your horse's mouth, and just keep your hand there as he's moving around. As he goes up, reach up and stay with him, stay with him, stay with him. Once he stops moving, good boy, take the pressure away. Give your pony a rub. Let them know that they did a good job. So That is my recommendation, is start with that. Make sure that you can approach your horse. In the Steady Horse Video Club, I also have different videos that you can look at on how to lower your horse's head that might help with that as well. But you need to be able to reach up in the vicinity around their mouth, put your tube or wormer against their mouth very comfortably before you even think about plunging that wormer in there. And that way you're not just throwing it in there as quick as you possibly can and hoping that most of it gets down there and not spilled out on the ground, okay? So I hope that helps. That was a really good question, Brittany. Okay, let's see here. A couple more folks that have joined us and jumped in. I see Kim Shepard. Good evening, ma'am. And Deborah Clark from Nebraska. Good evening, Deborah. And Janine. Howdy, Janine. Good to see you. All right, I'm going to do one more question from the Steady Horse Video Club, and then I'm going to jump in and start with some of the questions that you guys have posted on here this evening. So this says, let's see, this is from Kelly Friesenhan, and it says, my gelding went sour while I was away for school, and the last time I rode him, he bucked me off. How do I regain my confidence? Ooh, that's a good one, because a lot of times we have horses and we use these terms. What we say sour. Sometimes we say they're cold back, right? You have a horse that's been sitting in pasture, and we have this idea of sending that horse off for a tune-up, right? Get them tuned up. It's so crazy because a lot of people just grab a horse and jump on them. Okay. And let me tell you, that is the worst thing anybody can do for a horse. And I don't know if that's what you did, Kelly, but a lot of people will just grab a horse and jump on them and go for it. And just think about it. Like, what if, someone just grabbed you out of bed and just threw you in your workplace and was like, perform, get after it, and start executing and working and performing at a high level. It wouldn't, you gotta kind of warm up, right? I'm not always the happiest camper in the morning when I wake up. I gotta get my coffee, I gotta get moving a little bit, and then I kind of gradually get into the swing of things, and then I'll actually be able to speak in coherent sentences and talk to people. And so the same is true with our horses. We should always do groundwork every time before you ride. And a lot of people say, well, how much groundwork should I do? 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes? The answer to that is whatever it takes. And what I mean by that is start your groundwork, do your desensitizing. You're going to desensitize until your horse is quiet and relaxed. You're going to send your horse off and do some of these ground exercises until they are quiet, relaxed, and responsive. Then you've put your horse in the frame of mind to be worked with. So I would encourage doing quite a bit of groundwork with your horse, getting them in the frame of mind in order to be successful when you actually start the real work of riding the horse. And by doing that, not only are you going to put your horse in a better mental place, you're also going to help to begin to develop more stamina physically in that horse, right? Especially if they've been off for a while. And you're also going to build a deeper bond and connection with your horse, because your horse is going to appreciate the fact that you took the time to set them up and that you were sensitive to the fact that, hey, he's been sitting for a while, or, you're warming him up to the idea and getting him kind of going and getting him warmed up, and he's going to do much better because of that. So really good question there, Kelly. And super glad you asked that question, because I think a lot of folks can benefit from that question. Okay, a couple more folks have jumped on here. I see Teresa Thompson. Good evening, ma'am. Lisa Stoneman and Dawn. Good evening. Glad to see you. So glad that y'all were able to jump on here. And just a reminder, super excited, at the end of this session, we're going to be doing a Steady Horse hat giveaway. So if you're able to, make sure that you stick around till the end. We're going to draw a name. Okay, let's see here. So I'm going to get the questions you guys have asked on here this evening. We have from Dawn, it says, how do you know you have done enough groundwork before getting out? Oh, okay, good question, Don. So that's kind of like what I just touched on, right? It's when your horse is relaxed, when your horse is quiet. That's when you've done Okay, if there's any question in your mind that your horse is nervous, that your horse just, you get that feeling in your gut, right? Something's off here. Don't ride your horse, please. I see too many people get hurt needlessly, which could be prevented with just a little bit more groundwork. Working your horse until they're relaxed, until they're in the right place, so that you can be set up to set you and your horse up to have a good ride. So great question, Dawn. Very nice question. Okay, so let's see here. We have a question from Sunny Frisbee. It says, with the impending severe weather, tornadoes and hail, oh goodness, I'm sorry to hear that. Should I stable my horses tonight? They do not have shelter in their grazing pasture at this time. Yeah, I definitely recommend sheltering them in inclement weather, best you can. That's just going to be the best bet for them to keep them safe. Make sure that they can stay dry and stay out of the weather, and especially if there's hail, so that hail's not pummeling on them, right? Okay, so let's see if there's. I'm going to. Oh, we got a couple more people that have joined here. We have Adele from Buffalo. Good evening, Adele. And we have Retha. Good evening, Retha. Okay. So I'm going to see. Let's see. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do our Facebook live drawing here. So it's the first time I'm doing this, so bear with me here. I've got like this digital name drawer thing. So let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and hit it right there. You can't see what I see on my screen, but it's spinning around here. Okay. So I'm going to do a little bit of a drum roll here. Let's see here. And the winner is Gene Crow Ward and your horse Moon. So congratulations, Gene. We're going to be sending you out a Steady Horse hat. Go ahead and you can message us via the group, the private messaging, and we'll reach out to you so that we can get you that hat. So you're going to be getting a pretty cool Steady Horse hat. I love these hats. I like these hats, and we're actually going to be in the future giving out additional giveaways, and so I'm super excited to be able to give more stuff out. And I think you're going to enjoy your hat, Gene, and I hope that Moon is doing well and that he's a good mount for you, and I pray that you are always just safe and that God just blesses and protects the two of you always. So congratulations, Gene. Super excited for you to get that hat. Okay. I've got another question here, and this is going to be the last question I do here. It says, what do you suggest for physical exercise and enrichment for retired seniors? And this is from Kay Reed. Kay, that is an awesome question. There's I say a few things that I see, especially as far as equine related. I see a lot of people that are doing yoga or Pilates, and that helps them as far as their agility with horsemanship. And one of the things I really love about also Tai Chi, yoga, Pilates, one of the things I love about those types of exercises, because they vary in different degrees of strainity, right? And so I see people who are doing yoga, Pilates, Tai Chi, and they're able to work at their own pace. And it's a lot about the breathing, the relaxing, settling yourself. You might work yourself up a little bit, but then you draw yourself back down. And those types of exercises relate so well to working with horses, because you'll see a lot of people who just, they get after a horse and they're counting down, and there's a lot of drama and moving and chasing around and all that kind of stuff. And horsemanship should really be at a level that you can comfortably approach. It shouldn't compromise your safety. You shouldn't feel like you have to be in a rush or in a hurry. And so I feel like those types of exercises are really good for slowing you down, helping you to take your time and not to feel like you have to be in such a rush. And when you're not in a rush, when you take your time, when you put your horse's thoughts and needs first, you do so much better for your horse every time. So that's what I would recommend. Again, Kay Reed, that's a great, oh, wait a minute, wait. I see you said, oh no, for senior horses. You want exercises for senior horses. Okay, so that's what I recommend for, that's what I recommend for senior people. Okay, so for senior horses, if you want good exercises for senior horses, you want to do a lot of first groundwork, and I would try to limit my groundwork depending on how old they are at the walk and trot, but make sure that you don't spend too much time at the trot. You know, you just have to use your judgment, right? And depends, you know, what kind of condition they're in, what kind of shape they're in. One of the things that's good for senior horses too, and it's kind of funny because it's the same thing as like with people, is like doing your flexing and stretches, right? And so if you know how to flex your horse laterally and also vertically, those are really good stretches that you can do for your horse because you want to encourage and develop suppleness. And you'll find that the horses that have been taught to have more bend, more top line, they've been taught a little bit about collection and inclining and softening. Those horses tend to have more longevity. They tend to be sound longer. Mentally, those horses do a little bit better because, believe it or not, when a horse is in collection, when a horse is soft, that releases endorphins into your horse's system, helps them to be a little bit more relaxed. So groundwork is always great, and then if you're able to ride them, doing some flat work with them is great, but just make sure you don't spend too much time at the trot, hardly any time in the canter. You know, you might ask for a few strides here, a few strides there, and then breathe them down. If they're able to trot and canter, at least do some with them, okay? And the way you can kind of figure that out is based on how they behave when they're in pasture, right? If you see your horse running and kicking and bucking in pasture, then that's going to indicate that there's still a little bit of life in them. And then you can ask them to get up and go. The more that your horses move, the better off they are. And that's why you see horses that are stalled up, right, tend to have more problems, more instances of colic, getting cast, things like that. But horses that are out in pasture or that have daily turnout, they tend to do much better. So that's what I recommend, I guess, for both senior people and senior horses. All right. Well, I want to just thank you all for joining us this evening. Again, I just can't express enough how much I appreciate everybody coming on here and chipping in and asking questions so that we can discuss some things. And just always amazed at all the contributions that people make in the group and the support, the amazing support that's in the Steady Horse community. And I am just so proud of everything that everybody does because you guys are such good friends to each other and support each other. And this is one of the few horse groups where there's not a lot of ugliness and backbiting and stuff like that. And I absolutely love that. So I just want to wish everybody a very happy Easter and have a great week and a fantastic weekend. And thank you all so much for joining me on another Steady Horse Live.